Karen and her mom tried to hit me and get me arrested, after I used the women's bathroom to change my son's diaper. First of all, sorry for any mistakes, English isn't my first language. I, am 19, am a single father to my son Leo, 11 months. Being a teen dad wasn't exactly in my life plans, but here we are, and honestly, Leo is the best thing that's ever happened to me. His mom isn't in the picture, long story for another time, so it's just me and my little guy figuring things out together. Earlier today, I got called to celebrate my friend Jake's 20th birthday at the local mall with some other friends from high school. I was honestly excited to get out and socialize a bit. Being a single parent can get pretty isolating, especially when most of your friends are still living that carefree college life. I accepted the invitation, and since I had no one I could ask to take care of Leo, my parents live 3 states away, and I haven't built up a reliable babysitter network yet, I decided to bring him with me. I figured it would be a short celebration anyway, maybe 2 or 3 hours max, and Leo's generally pretty good in public. The mall was busier than I expected for a Tuesday afternoon. Our little group consisted of Jake, his girlfriend Sarah, my buddy Marcus, and 2 other friends from our old crew, Tom and Alex. We spent the first hour or so just walking around, catching up on life, and window shopping. Leo was being an absolute angel, charming everyone we passed with his huge brown eyes and that gummy smile that melts hearts. Several people stopped to comment on how cute he was, and I felt that familiar surge of pride that comes with being his dad. "Dude, you're like a chick magnet with that baby," Marcus had joked earlier when a group of college-aged girls had stopped to coo over Leo. "Maybe I should borrow him for my Tinder profile." "Yeah, because nothing says, 'date me,' like stealing someone else's baby for photos," Sarah had laughed, rolling her eyes. "Hey, desperate times," Marcus had replied with a grin. Besides, Leo's got better game than all of us combined. We grabbed some food court pizza and found a table near the fountain. The guys were telling stories about their college experiences, and I was genuinely enjoying myself for the first time in weeks. Leo was contentedly sitting in his stroller, playing with his favorite stuffed elephant and occasionally babbling along with our conversation like he understood every word. But then, about an hour and a half into our mall adventure, I caught a whiff of something that every parent knows all too well. That unmistakable, urgent smell that means business needs to be handled immediately. I looked down at Leo, who was giving me that slightly strained expression babies get when they're working on a particularly impressive diaper situation. "Oh no, buddy," I muttered, and immediately knew what was happening. The smell was getting stronger by the second, and I could see other people at nearby tables starting to notice and look around with confused expressions. "Dude, what is that smell?" Jake asked, wrinkling his nose. "That," I said, standing up and grabbing the diaper bag, "is the sound of our mall adventure taking a detour." "Oh God," Sarah said, covering her nose with her napkin. "How can something so small produce something so powerful?" "It's like a superpower," I explained. "Babies have the ability to clear entire rooms with their digestive achievements." Marcus was trying not to laugh. "Maybe we should call the EPA. This could be classified as a hazardous waste situation." I quickly excused myself from the group, explaining the situation with a mix of embarrassment and urgency that only fellow parents would truly understand. Jake laughed and made some joke about daddy duty, while Sarah offered to help if I needed anything. "If I'm not back in 20 minutes, send a search party," I called over my shoulder. "And maybe some hazmat suits." I grabbed the diaper bag from under Leo's stroller and headed toward what I hoped would be a family restroom. Leo was starting to get fussy, probably uncomfortable from sitting in his mess, and I was walking quickly, scanning the mall directory signs for bathroom locations. The first bathroom area I found only had the standard men's and women's restrooms. I peeked into the men's room hopefully, but as expected, there was no changing table in sight. Just urinals, a couple of stalls, and a basic sink setup. "Come on, mall designers," I muttered to myself. "It's 2024. Did you really think fathers would never need to change diapers?" Feeling increasingly desperate, and aware that the smell situation was getting worse, I tried to find a family bathroom. I walked to 2 other bathroom locations in the mall, but incredibly, none of them had family facilities. This mall was apparently built in an era when fathers changing diapers wasn't considered a normal occurrence. By this point, Leo was getting genuinely upset, starting to cry in that way that tells you he's really uncomfortable. Other shoppers were giving us looks, some sympathetic, others clearly annoyed by the smell that was now following us around like a cloud. That's when I spotted a mall employee, a woman probably in her 40s, wearing the standard mall uniform, restocking a display near the Spencer's store. I approached her somewhat desperately. "Excuse me," I said, probably sounding more frantic than I intended. I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you tell me where the changing tables are? I've checked 3 different bathroom areas and can't find any family restrooms. She looked at me with immediate understanding, clearly a mother herself, and her expression was sympathetic. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. This mall really needs to update their facilities. The only changing tables we have are in the women's restrooms. It's ridiculous, I know. I felt my heart sink. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. Would it be possible for me to use the women's restroom just to change him? It's kind of an emergency situation here. She looked around, considering the request, then looked at Leo, who was now crying more insistently and clearly miserable. She smiled kindly and nodded. You know what? Absolutely. Don't worry about it, this happens more often than you'd think. Just be quick about it, and I'm sure the ladies in there will understand. It's obviously an emergency. I thanked her profusely, took a deep breath to steel myself for what I knew would be an awkward situation, and headed toward the women's restroom. My hands were actually shaking a little as I pushed open the door. I'd never been in a women's public restroom before, and despite having permission, I felt like I was breaking some major social rule. Okay, Leo, I whispered as we approached the door. This is either going to go really well, or we're about to become the most awkward story these ladies tell at dinner tonight. The moment I stepped inside with Leo in my arms, conversation stopped. There were maybe 5 or 6 women in there, some at the sinks doing their makeup, others coming out of stalls, and every single pair of eyes turned to look at me. The silence was deafening. Sorry, I mumbled to the room in general, holding up Leo as if his presence would explain everything. Just need to use the changing table real quick. Emergency diaper situation. Most of the women seemed to understand immediately. A couple of them smiled sympathetically, and one older lady even said, "Of course, sweetheart. You do what you need to do." "Been there," another woman said with a knowing laugh. "My husband had to do the same thing when our daughter was little. These places never think about fathers." Their understanding made me feel a little less like I was committing some terrible crime. I located the changing table, thankfully it was the pull-down kind that was actually clean and well-maintained, and quickly got Leo situated. He was still crying, but seemed to calm down a little now that we were finally addressing his problem. That I was starting to relax, thinking that maybe this wasn't going to be as awkward as I'd feared. The women were being incredibly understanding and kind, and Leo was finally starting to calm down. That's when I heard the voice that would haunt my nightmares. "What the hell are you doing here?" I looked up to see a girl who couldn't have been much older than me, maybe 20 or 21, standing near the sinks with her hands on her hips and a look of absolute outrage on her face. She had that particular entitled expression that screams, "I want to speak to your manager," even at her young age. "Oh," I said quietly, trying not to escalate the situation while continuing to change Leo's diaper. "I'm just changing my son's diaper. There aren't any changing tables in the men's room." "Well, you should be somewhere else," she snapped, her voice getting louder and more shrill. "This is the women's bathroom." "I know, and I'm really sorry for the inconvenience," I said, still trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. "But this is the only changing table in the mall. The employee outside said it would be okay." "I don't care what some employee said," she practically shrieked. "You're a man in the women's bathroom. This is inappropriate." "Look, I understand your concern," I said, finishing up with the diaper and starting to clean up my supplies. "I'm just trying to take care of my baby. I'll be out of here in like 30 seconds. But she wasn't having any of it. Her face was getting redder by the second. "Why don't you change him at the sink in the men's room?" she demanded. "Or better yet, where's your girlfriend? Why isn't SHE doing this?" That hit a nerve. "There's not enough space or appropriate surface at the men's room sink to safely change a baby," I explained, my patience starting to wear thin. "And I don't have a girlfriend. I'm a single father." Her eyes lit up like she'd just found the smoking gun she'd been looking for. "Oh, maybe that's why," she yelled, loud enough that I'm sure people outside the bathroom could hear. "Maybe you're single because you're some kind of pervert who comes into women's bathrooms to harass women." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face go white, then hot with anger and humiliation. This was exactly the kind of situation I'd always feared as a young single father. "Miss, I am absolutely not harassing anyone," I said, my voice shaking with controlled emotion. "I am simply trying to change my son's diaper so he's not sitting in his own mess. That's it." But she was beyond reason at this point. I watched in slow motion as she raised her hand and started moving toward me, her face twisted with rage. "You pervert," she screamed. That I instinctively stepped back, pulling Leo closer to my chest to protect him, but before she could actually hit me, two other women in the restroom quickly grabbed her arms. "Whoa, hold on there," one of them said firmly. "That's completely unnecessary. He's obviously just trying to take care of his baby," the other woman added. The girl struggled against them, still screaming about perverts and inappropriate behavior, but they held her firmly while I quickly finished packing up the diaper bag. My hands were shaking, and Leo was starting to cry again. "Thank you," I said quickly to the women who had intervened, then grabbed Leo and all our stuff and practically ran out of that bathroom as fast as I could move. When I rejoined the group at our table, I must have looked pretty shaken because Jake immediately asked what was wrong. I told them the whole story, and after the initial shock and outrage on my behalf, we ended up laughing about it. "Dude, you should have told her you identify as a woman just to see her head explode," Marcus joked, which got everyone laughing even harder. "Or that you were conducting a sociological experiment on bathroom behavior," Alex added. "Really lean into the academic angle." "Next time I'm just changing Leo right here on the table," I said, gesturing to our food court spot. "See how they like that alternative. Nothing says fine dining like a public diaper change." "Oh man," Tom said, wiping tears from his eyes, "you should have asked her if she wanted to help." "Ma'am, since you're so concerned about appropriate bathroom behavior, would you like to assist with this diaper change?" "You know what you should have done?" Sarah said. "You should have started live streaming it." Welcome to Diaper Changing with Dad, Episode 1, When Karens Attack. "Hey, YouTube fame is YouTube fame," I said. "Maybe I could start a whole series. Adventures in Single Parenting. Today we're exploring public restroom politics." We spent another 20 minutes making jokes about the situation, and I was finally starting to relax and see the humor in it all. Leo had calmed down too, now that he was clean and comfortable. "Seriously though," Marcus said, "what is it with people? Like, what did she think you were doing? Taking a baby into the bathroom as some kind of elaborate cover story for, what exactly? Right?" I said. "Because nothing says criminal mastermind like a 19-year-old with a diaper bag and a crying baby. The perfect crime," Tom nodded solemnly. "No one suspects the single dad." But then, about 15 minutes later, I noticed a commotion near the mall entrance. The same girl from the bathroom was being practically dragged across the food court by an older woman who was clearly her mother. And they were heading straight for our table. "Oh no," I said, my stomach dropping. "Round 2 is approaching." "Is that her?" Marcus asked, following my gaze. "Should we run?" Alex asked, only half joking. $20 says the mom is even worse than the daughter," Tom said. "You're on," Sarah replied. "I think the mom is going to be mortified and apologetic." When they reached our table, I braced myself for another verbal assault. But what happened next completely caught me off guard. The mother immediately launched into profuse apologies. "I am so sorry," she said, looking genuinely mortified. "I cannot believe my daughter's behavior. What she did was completely unacceptable, and you absolutely should not have had to deal with that." I was so surprised that I could barely respond. "Oh, it's okay," I managed to stammer. "No, it's really not okay," she continued. "I raised her better than that, and I'm honestly ashamed. You were just trying to take care of your baby, and she had no right to treat you that way." She then turned to her daughter and gave her a look that could have melted steel. "Apologize. Right now." The girl, who had been standing there looking sullen and embarrassed, mumbled something that might have been an apology, though she clearly didn't mean it. "I can't hear you," her mother said sternly. "I'm sorry," the girl said more clearly, though still with obvious reluctance. "I overreacted." The mother shook her head. "That's not good enough. You accused this young man of being a pervert simply for changing his baby's diaper. You tried to physically attack him. That's not overreacting, that's completely inappropriate behavior." She turned back to me. "Again, I'm so sorry. I hope this doesn't discourage you from taking care of your son in public. You seem like a wonderful father, and what you experienced today was wrong." She started to turn away, then paused. "Come on, Karen. We're going home, and you're going to think about what happened here today." "Her name is actually Karen?" Jake asked incredulously as they walked away. "Apparently," I said, still processing what had just happened. "You can't make this stuff up," Sarah said, shaking her head. A literal Karen named Karen. Plot twist of the century, Alex added. The mom was actually awesome. I owe you $20, Tom said to Sarah. That was not how I expected that to go. We all started laughing again, but this time it was more from relief and the absurdity of the whole situation. The mother's intervention had actually made me feel a lot better about what had happened. You know what the best part is? Marcus said. Her name is literally Karen. Like, her parents looked at their newborn baby and said, you know what this child needs? A name that will become synonymous with entitled public freakouts. Maybe it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, I suggested. They named her Karen, so she had no choice but to become one. I still can't believe she actually tried to hit you, Jake said. Like, over a diaper change. Right? What was her end game there? I wondered. Beat up a teenage father in a public bathroom and then, what? Your Honor, he was aggressively changing a diaper. I feared for my safety, Marcus said in a mock-serious voice. The defendant was seen wielding baby wipes in a threatening manner. Sarah added that we were all dying laughing at this point, and I realized that this was exactly what I needed, friends who could take an awful situation and help me see the ridiculous side of it. The rest of our mall visit passed without incident. We finished eating, walked around a bit more, and eventually called it a day. Leo slept peacefully in his stroller for the rest of the time, completely oblivious to the drama that had unfolded around his diaper change. As we were getting ready to leave, the mall employee who had given me permission approached our table. How did everything go, honey? She asked with a concerned expression. That I gave her a quick rundown of what had happened, and she shook her head in disbelief. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, she said. That girl had no right to treat you that way. It's okay, I assured her. Her mother actually came and apologized later. Good, she said firmly. Because what you did was perfectly reasonable. We get fathers in there changing their babies all the time. As we walked toward the exit, I couldn't help but reflect on the whole experience. It had started as a simple diaper change and turned into a full-scale social experiment. You know what the weirdest part is? I said to my friends. I'm probably going to remember this day forever. Not because of the mall or Jake's birthday, but because of a diaper change. It's going to be one of those stories you tell at parties, Marcus said. And every time you tell it, it's going to get a little more dramatic. By the time Leo's old enough to understand it, I'll be telling him about how his dad fought off a horde of angry Karens armed with nothing but wet wipes, I said. You should get a medal, Tom said. The Purple Heart for injuries sustained in the line of parental duty. The Order of the Changing Table for services to single fathers everywhere, Sarah chimed in. As I drove home with Leo sleeping peacefully in the back seat, I thought about how this story would probably follow us both for years to come. But mostly, I was just grateful that Leo was healthy and happy, and that despite the drama, we'd managed to have a good day out with friends. Looking back on it now, I'm struck by several things. First, how vulnerable single fathers can be to accusations and suspicion. Second, how inadequate public facilities still are for fathers who need to change their children. And third, how important it is to have people willing to stand up for what's right. Update: a lot of people have been asking about mall policies and what I should have done differently. For the record, I did everything I thought I could do in the situation. I asked permission, I was as quick and discreet as possible, and I was just trying to take care of my child's basic needs. Several people have suggested I should have complained to mall management about the lack of family facilities, and you know what? You're absolutely right. I plan to do exactly that. No parent should have to choose between leaving their child in a soiled diaper or facing the kind of confrontation I experienced today. Thanks to everyone who shared their own similar stories in the comments. It's both depressing and reassuring to know this happens to other dads too. We've got to do better, both as individuals and as a society. Leo says thanks for all the support. Okay, he actually just spit up on my shirt, but I'm choosing to interpret that as gratitude.